My phone would not stop buzzing. It shook the small table beside my motel bed like it was alive. When I finally opened my eyes, the screen glowed in the dark room. 42 missed calls, all from my son. My chest tightened so hard I had to sit up. 3 days earlier, that same son had looked me in the eye and told me I was not invited for Christmas. Now he was calling like his life depended on it. I stared at the phone, my hands shaking, and asked myself one question that made my stomach turn cold. What happened after I drove away that made my own son beg to hear my voice? 3 days earlier, Christmas Eve morning had started quietly, too quietly. I was 72 years old, widowed, and living alone in the small house I had paid off with 40 years of factory work. My wife, Margaret, had been gone 5 years. Since then, Christmas had felt thinner, like soup with too much water. Still, I kept the tree up. I wrapped small gifts. I waited. My son Daniel was all I had left. I had raised him the best I could, worked overtime, missed ball games, saved every extra dollar so he could go to college. When his mother died, I swallowed my grief so I could be strong for him. I thought that counted for something. That morning, I put on my clean flannel shirt and combed my thinning gray hair. I had already packed a small overnight bag. I was planning to drive the 2 hours to his house, like I did every year. At exactly 9:12 a.m., Daniel knocked on my door. He did not step inside. He stayed on the porch, hands in his coat pockets, eyes shifting like he was looking for a way out. "Dad," he said, clearing his throat, "we need to talk." I felt something drop inside me before he even spoke the next words. He told me his wife, Karen, did not want drama this Christmas. He said it would be better for everyone if I stayed home. He said the kids were busy. He said it was just this year. He did not say sorry. I remember the sound my house made after he left. The clock ticking, the heater humming, the silence pressing in on me like a weight. I sat down in my old chair and stared at the tree. The lights blinked slowly, like they were breathing without me. I did not cry, not yet. Instead, I did something I had never done before. I packed my bag, grabbed my keys, and drove away without telling anyone where I was going. I drove until the houses thinned and the road turned gray and empty. I passed towns I had never noticed before. Old diners, closed gas stations, Christmas lights hanging on buildings that looked tired just like me. I did not know why I was driving. I only knew I could not sit in that house and wait for the phone to stay silent all day. By nightfall, I checked into a cheap roadside motel, the kind with thin walls and buzzing lights. I lay on the bed and stared at the ceiling, listening to cars pass like waves. That night, sleep came in pieces. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Daniel standing on my porch, choosing comfort over his own father. The next day, Christmas Day, I woke up alone in that same motel room. No calls, no messages, nothing. I ate a stale muffin from the lobby and drank bitter coffee. Families laughed in the parking lot. Kids tore open gifts. I kept my eyes down and reminded myself to breathe. That afternoon, I decided to do something different. I drove back toward my hometown, but I did not go home. Instead, I stopped at the old hardware store near the river, the one I had worked at part-time after retirement. The owner, Frank, still knew me. "Didn't expect to see you today," he said. Neither did I. We talked slowly at first, then more. He asked about my son. I shrugged. He nodded like he understood more than I said. Before I left, he said something that stayed with me. Sometimes people push away the ones who remind them of who they really are. That night, I slept better. The second day passed quietly, still no calls. I went back to my house. I cleaned. I fixed a loose cabinet hinge. I fed the stray cat that sometimes came by. I tried to act like a man who was not waiting. But deep inside, something felt wrong. Daniel had never ignored me for this long, even when he was angry, even when his wife and I did not agree. On the third morning, I woke up early and went to the bank. I had not planned to, my feet just took me there. I sat across from a young teller who smiled politely. When she typed my name into her computer, her smile faded just a little. "Sir," she said slowly, "did you authorize any recent changes to your account?" My heart skipped. She turned the screen toward me. Large transfers, documents, a power of attorney I had never signed. My hands went cold. I told her no. She excused herself and returned with the manager. They spoke in low voices. Papers were printed. Questions were asked. One truth became painfully clear. Someone had been using my name. Someone close. Someone who knew my life. When I walked out of the bank, my legs felt weak. I sat in my car and stared at the steering wheel, trying to understand how rejection at Christmas had turned into something far worse. That was when my phone started buzzing. Again, and again, and again. I pulled it out and saw the number. Daniel. Missed call after missed call stacking up like a warning. By the time the buzzing stopped, the number on the screen read *42. I did not call him back. Not yet. Because now I understood something important. He had not pushed me away to protect his peace. He had pushed me away because he thought I was no longer useful ***. And whatever he had done in my absence had finally started to fall apart. As I started the car and looked toward the road leading to his house, one thought filled my mind. If my son was desperate enough to call me 42 times, then the truth I was about to uncover would change our lives forever. I sat in my car for a long time before turning the key. The engine was off and the world felt paused. The steering wheel was cold under my hands. My phone lay face down on the seat beside me, quiet now, like it had said all it needed to say. 42 calls. I did not answer any of them. I needed to think. At my age, thinking came slower, but it went deeper. I had learned that rushing only helped people who wanted to hide the truth. So I breathed. I counted to 10, then to 20. I reminded myself that fear was loud, but facts were quiet, and facts were what I needed. I drove home. The house looked the same as always, small and tired, but honest. I went inside and sat at the kitchen table where my wife and I had shared so many meals. I laid out the papers from the bank and read them again, slowly. There it was in plain words. A power of attorney filed 2 weeks ago. My name typed neatly at the bottom. A signature that looked like mine but was not. Transfers made from my savings into an account I did not recognize. Someone had planned this. Someone had time. Someone had access. I picked up my phone and finally opened the missed calls. Daniel had left 3 messages. His voice sounded rushed, thin, and scared. "Dad, please call me. Dad, something bad happened. Dad, I need you, please." I closed my eyes. I thought about Christmas morning, about him standing on my porch, keeping his distance, about how easy it had been for him to say I was not welcome. That was not guilt. That was preparation. I decided then that I would not confront him yet. I would listen. I would learn. I would let the truth show itself. I called one person instead. My granddaughter, Emily. She was 9 years old, smart, curious, honest in the way only children could be. She answered on the second ring. "Grandpa," she said, surprised and happy, "Dad said you weren't coming." My chest tightened, but I kept my voice calm. "I know, sweetheart. I just wanted to hear your voice." She talked about her new bike, about the cookies she burned with her mom, about how quiet the house felt the last few days. Then she said something that made my heart stop. "Grandpa, Daddy, been really scared." I asked her what she meant. "He keeps talking to lawyers," she said, "and he told Mommy not to open any mail with your name on it." I thanked her and told her I loved her. When the call ended, the house felt colder. Lawyers. My mail. My name. The picture was getting clearer. That evening, I went to the post office. I asked the clerk if there had been any forwarding requests or changes. She checked and nodded. "Yes, sir. A temporary forwarding order was filed." My hands curled into fists. "Where?" I asked. She told me the address. It was Daniel's house. I walked out into the cold air and laughed once, short and bitter. It was not a happy sound. They had moved my mail so I would not see the bank notices, so I would not see the changes, so I would stay quiet. They had counted on me being alone. That night I did not sleep much. I sat in my chair and thought about my life, about how often I had chosen peace over questions, about how many times I had told myself that family meant trust, no matter what. I realized something painful. Trust without attention is not love. It is blindness. By morning, I had a plan. I drove to a small office downtown where an old friend worked. Her name was Ruth. She had been a legal assistant for over 30 years and had seen every kind of family trouble there was. She listened without interrupting. She read the papers. She leaned back in her chair and sighed. "Your son is in serious trouble," she said. I asked her to explain it to me simply. She did. The power of attorney was fake. That meant fraud. The transfers were illegal. That meant theft. And because it involved family, it was worse, not better. "They thought you wouldn't fight," she said gently. "They thought you'd be embarrassed or tired." I told her I was tired. But I was not finished. She helped me file the first report. She told me what to document, what not to say yet, who would be watching. When I left her office, my phone rang again. "Daniel." This time I answered. "Dad," he said, his voice cracking. "Thank God, where are you?" "At home," I said. There was a pause. "You weren't answering," he said. "I was thinking," I replied. He swallowed hard. I could hear it. "Dad, I messed up," he said, "but I can fix it. I just need you to sign something." There it was. I asked him what he needed me to sign. "A paper," he said quickly, "just to clear things up." I asked him to explain it. Silence. Then he said, "Karen thought it would be easier if you weren't involved this Christmas. We didn't want to stress you." I felt a slow heat rise in my chest, not anger, understanding. "You didn't uninvite me to protect me," I said. "You uninvited me so I wouldn't see what you were doing." He started talking fast then, about debts, about a bad investment, about trying to keep his family safe. "I was going to pay it back," he said. "I swear." I told him I needed time. I told him not to contact me again until I called him. Then I hung up. 2 days later, I received a letter. Not forwarded, not hidden. A notice of investigation. Things were moving now, faster than Daniel expected, faster than he could control. That evening my phone buzzed again, not Daniel this time. "Karen, my daughter-in-law." "Please," she said, crying, "we didn't mean for this to happen." I asked her why she had agreed to it. She told me the truth. They were drowning in debt. They were afraid of losing the house. She had suggested using my savings temporarily. Daniel had hesitated, then agreed. "And the power of attorney?" I asked. She admitted she had found an old copy from years ago, scanned it, changed the date, practiced my signature. I closed my eyes. "You stole from me," I said quietly. "We're family," she said. "No," I replied, "we were." After the call ended, I sat alone and felt the weight of it all settle in. The betrayal, the lies, the way love had been used like a tool. I thought about Emily, about what she would learn from watching this. That night, I made one final decision. I would not protect them from the consequences. I would protect the truth. The next morning, I drove toward Daniel's house. I did not call ahead. As I turned onto his street, I saw police cars parked outside. My heart pounded. I parked slowly, stepped out, and watched as officers walked up the driveway. Daniel stood in the doorway, pale and shaking. When he saw me, his eyes widened. He took one step toward me, desperation written all over his face. "Dad," he said, his voice breaking, "please." I stopped where I was. Because now, standing there in the cold morning air, I knew something he did not. This was only the beginning of what the truth was about to take from him. And from me. I stayed in my car as the police walked past me. Their shoes crunched on the gravel of Daniel's driveway. The sound felt loud, like it echoed inside my chest. I watched my son stand there, frozen, his hands shaking as he tried to explain something to the officers. For a moment, I almost stepped out to stop it. Almost. But then I remembered Christmas morning. I remembered the porch, the way he had looked past me instead of at me. I stayed where I was. The officers spoke to him calmly. One of them knocked on the door again, and Corinne appeared. Her face was red and swollen from crying. She wrapped her arms around herself like she was cold, even though she had a thick sweater on. I turned my head away. This was not something I wanted to see, but it was something I needed to let happen. After a few minutes, one officer walked toward my car. "Sir," he said gently, "are you Mr. Harold Thompson?" I nodded. "We'd like to ask you a few questions." I stepped out slowly. My knees felt stiff, but I stood tall. I had spent my whole life working hard, keeping my word, paying my bills. I was not ashamed of anything I had done. We stood beside my car while the officer spoke. He explained that there had been a report of financial fraud connected to my accounts. He asked if I had filed it. "Yes," I said, "with help." He nodded, like he respected that answer. He asked if Daniel was my son. "Yes." He asked if I had given him permission to manage my money. "No." Each answer felt heavy, but also clean, like opening a window in a room that had been closed too long. They thanked me and walked back to the house. I watched as Daniel was asked to sit down, not arrested, not yet, but the look on his face told me he understood something important. Things were no longer in his control. I drove home slowly after that. I did not feel victorious. I felt tired, the kind of tired that reaches your bones. When I got inside, my phone rang again. "Emily." "Grandpa," she whispered, "why were the police at our house?" I closed my eyes and took a breath. "Sometimes adults make big mistakes," I said carefully, "and when they do, they have to face them." "Is Daddy in trouble?" she asked. "Yes," I said softly, "but he's safe." She was quiet for a moment. "I'm scared," she said. "So am I replied. "But we're going to be honest, and honesty helps things heal." I could hear her breathing on the other end. Then she said, "I love you, Grandpa." "I love you too," I said, and meant it more than anything. Over the next few days, pieces of the truth kept coming. Letters arrived at my house again, real ones, bank statements, legal notices. Each one showed more clearly what Daniel and Corinne had done. They had taken more money than I first realized, not just for bills, not just to keep their house. There had been gambling, bad business deals, credit cards stacked on top of each other like cards in a house of lies. I learned something painful. They had not been desperate. They had been careless. And when the risk caught up to them, they had chosen me as the safety net. I met with Ruth again. She explained everything slowly, using simple words. She told me what would happen next. There would be an investigation. There might be charges. There would almost certainly be repayment orders. It would take time. "Are you sure you want to go forward?" she asked me. "Once this starts, you can't stop it." I thought about the years I had spent fixing Daniel's problems quietly, paying for school mistakes, helping with rent, watching him learn that someone else would always catch him. I shook my head. "No," I said, "I don't want to stop it." She nodded. "That may save him in the long run," she said. I wasn't sure if that was true, but I knew this was the only honest path left. A week later, Daniel came to my house. He looked smaller than I remembered, his shoulders slumped, his eyes hollow. He stood on my porch the same way I had stood on his. "Dad," he said, "please let me explain." I let him in. We sat across from each other at the kitchen table, the same table where his mother had once helped him with homework, where we had eaten pancakes on Sunday mornings. He cried. Not loud, not dramatic, just tears sliding down his face. "I was scared," he said. "I didn't know how to fix it." I listened. But instead of asking for help, I said, "You lied, you stole, you shut me out." He nodded. "I thought if you stayed away," he whispered, "it would buy me time." I leaned back in my chair. "You didn't just steal money," I said. "You stole trust, and that's harder to get back." He asked me then if I would talk to the police for him, if I would say it was a misunderstanding, if I would help him avoid the worst. I looked at my son and saw not a child anymore, but a grown man who had made choices. "No," I said. His face broke completely. "I'm your father," I continued, "not your shield from consequences." He left shortly after that, slowly, quietly. The house felt heavy again, but different this time. Not empty, just honest. Days passed, then weeks. The investigation moved forward. Daniel lost his job. Karen moved in with her sister. The children stayed with her. I missed Emily terribly. One afternoon, I received a letter from the court. It explained the next steps, possible charges, required appearances, long words that all meant the same thing. This was real. That night I sat alone and wondered if I had done the right thing, if standing up for myself had cost too much. Then my phone rang. A number I didn't recognize. I answered. "Mr. Thompson," a man said, "this is Detective Harris. We need to speak with you about new information." My heart started to pound. "What kind of information?" I asked. He paused. "Information that changes the seriousness of this case." I gripped the phone tighter. "Are you saying it's worse?" I asked. "Yes," he replied, "much worse." I did not sleep that night. Detective Harris's words kept circling in my head like a warning bell that would not stop ringing. Much worse. I sat in my chair by the window and watched the streetlight flicker on and off. Every sound felt louder. Every thought felt heavier. In the morning, I made coffee and did not drink it. My hands shook too much. At 9 o'clock sharp, I drove to the police station. The building smelled like old paper and cleaning spray. Detective Harris met me in the lobby. He was polite, calm, and careful with his words. That scared me more than shouting ever could. We sat in a small room with gray walls. He placed a folder on the table and opened it slowly. "Mr. Thompson," he said, "we believed this was limited to fraud involving your accounts. It is not." He showed me copies of documents, more signatures, more accounts, names I recognized. Mine, Daniel, Karen, and two others, Emily and her younger brother. I felt my breath leave my body. They had opened accounts in the children's names, credit lines, small at first, then larger, used my information to support them, used my grandchildren's future like it was spare change. I stood up so fast my chair fell backward. "You're telling me they stole from their own children," I said. Detective Harris nodded. "They plan to pay it back," he said carefully. But planning doesn't change the crime. I sat back down slowly. My heart hurt in a way I had never felt before. This was no longer about me. This was about stopping something dangerous before it reached the next generation. When I left the station, I did not go home. I went straight to Ruth's office. She read the new information and closed the folder quietly. "This escalates everything," she said, "and it explains why they were so desperate to keep you away." I asked her what I could do. "Protect the children," she said, "and do not lie for anyone." That afternoon I called Corinne's sister. I told her the truth, all of it, slowly. Clearly, no anger, no insults. There was silence on the other end. Then she said, "I knew something was wrong." She promised to watch over the kids, to make sure their names were protected, to keep records. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I was doing something right. 2 days later, Daniel came back. This time he did not knock. He pounded. When I opened the door, his face was red, his eyes wild. "You told them about the kids," he said. "I told the truth," I replied. "You ruined everything," he shouted. I stayed calm. "You did that," I said. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Fix this," he said. "Say it was all your idea. Say you told us to do it." I stared at him. "You want me to lie so you can escape what you did?" I asked. "They're my kids," he said. "I was trying to save them." I shook my head. "You were teaching them that stealing is love," I said. "I won't be part of that." His anger collapsed into fear. "They could take them away," he whispered. "That depends on what you do next," I said. He left without another word. That night my phone rang again. Unknown number. I answered. "Mr. Thompson," a woman said, "this is Child Protective Services. We need to talk." My heart dropped. She explained that the children were safe, but the investigation required interviews, that my statements mattered, that honesty mattered. After the call, I sat alone and cried for the first time since my wife died. Not for myself. For the little girl who loved her bike. For the boy who trusted his parents. For a family that had confused love with control. The next morning, I received a final call. Detective Harris again. "Mr. Thompson," he said, "your son has agreed to speak." I closed my eyes. "Has he told the truth?" I asked. There was a pause. "He has told part of it," Harris said, "but there's something he hasn't explained yet." "What's that?" I asked. Harris lowered his voice. "Why he rushed you away before Christmas." My stomach turned. Because suddenly, I realized something terrifying. Christmas was not just a distraction. It was a deadline. Chapter 5. When Detective Harris said the word *deadline, everything finally made sense. I sat at my kitchen table after the call, staring at the same wood grain I had stared at for years. Christmas had not just been a holiday they wanted to enjoy without me. It was the moment before something big collapsed. They needed me gone so I would not notice the final pieces moving. The next day, Detective Harris came to my house in person. He spoke slowly, knowing my age, knowing my heart was already tired. Daniel had taken out a large loan using my name as backup, even though I never agreed to it. The loan company was scheduled to review the account right after Christmas. They would have called me. They would have mailed documents. They would have asked questions. That was why Daniel came on Christmas Eve. That was why he told me not to come. If I was not around, if I was quiet and alone, they hoped the review would pass without trouble. They hoped the money would buy them time. They hoped I would never find out. But plans built on lies always break. Daniel finally told the full truth 2 days later. He admitted everything: the forged papers, the hidden mail, the accounts in the children's names, the loan. Karen admitted her part too. She said fear made her do it. Fear of losing the house, fear of embarrassment, fear of admitting they were living a life they could not afford. Fear does not excuse betrayal. Because of the evidence, Daniel was charged. Karen was charged as well, though less severely because she cooperated early. The court ordered all stolen money to be returned. Their house was sold to repay debts. They lost more than money. They lost trust. The children were placed temporarily with Karen's sister where they were safe, loved, and protected. Their credit was cleared. Their names were restored. I was asked if I wanted to press further charges. I thought long and hard. I want accountability, I said, not revenge. The court listened. Daniel received probation, mandatory counseling, and years of repayment. He did not go to prison, but his freedom now came with rules and consequences, rules he could no longer escape. When he stood in court and looked at me, his eyes were different. No anger, no excuses. Just understanding. After everything was settled, weeks passed quietly. One afternoon, Emily came to visit. She ran into my arms like nothing had changed. We sat on the floor and built puzzles. We ate sandwiches. We laughed softly. Before she left, she asked me a question. "Grandpa," she said, "why didn't you lie to help Daddy?" I looked at her carefully. "Because lying would have taught you the wrong lesson," I said, "and you deserve better." She nodded like she understood. That night I sat alone again, but this time the silence felt different. It was not empty, it was peaceful. I thought about Christmas, about the drive, about the 42 missed calls. I realized something important. Walking away saved me. Telling the truth saved my grandchildren. And love does not mean protecting people from consequences. Love means protecting what is right. The next Christmas, Emily and her brother came to my house. We decorated the tree together. We baked cookies. We talked openly. No secrets, no fear. Daniel did not come. Not yet. But he sent a card, in his handwriting. It said only this: "Thank you for stopping me before I became someone my children would fear." I placed the card on the table and turned off the light. For the first time in a long while, I slept well. Silence can be dangerous. Trust your instincts. And remember, family love is not proven by what we hide, but by the truth we are brave enough to face.